You're no longer who you think you are. The evidence just hasn't arrived yet. It sounds like a joke, especially if you're reading this at the end of the month when you're down to pennies and your paycheck isn't due for another week. Especially if today was a day when you seemed to be giving it your all, but were stuck in the same place. But give me a couple of minutes, and I'll show you why this phrase isn't an empty slogan, but a fully functional mechanism that can be broken down step by step. Here's the mistake almost everyone makes. They open their banking app, look at the number, and decide, this is my true value. This is my ceiling. This is who I am. A small amount means I haven't achieved anything, and every month this verdict is updated anew. The number is the same, the conclusion is the same. Now look at the catch. Your bank account balance isn't you as you are today. It's a reflection of your past, the result of decisions, habits, and mindsets you had 1, 2, 5 years ago. Your current income is the result of the terms you once negotiated with the world in the past. Your debts are also the consequences of past choices. Money doesn't reflect the present at all. It's a lagging indicator, like the light of a distant star. You see it now, but in reality, you're looking at what it was like thousands of years ago. Perhaps the star has brightened exponentially, but it just hasn't reached you yet. It's exactly the same with people. A person can have already changed profoundly, irreversibly, but for another year or two, the score will still show the same old version. And it's precisely in this gap between internal change and external results that most people break down. Because they're already different inside, but there's no external confirmation yet, and they give up, literally one step away from the result, because the old score has proved to them that nothing works. So, today I'll show you other evidence, not about money, it's lagging, but internal. There are 7 shifts that happen to a person even before money arrives. 7 subtle changes that no one around them notices, not loved ones, not colleagues, not even the banking app. Sometimes, even the person themselves doesn't notice them. But they mean the process has already begun, and the numbers are just a matter of time. Let's go through all 7. I bet you'll recognize yourself in at least 2 of them. You'll remember specific moments in your life that you didn't attach any importance to back then, and that's a shame. That's when it all began. First, shift. The moment when other people's conversations become too confining for you. Think back to Friday evening. The same group as years ago, the same table, the same topics. One complains about the boss, another recounts the news about how bad everything is, a third repeats once again that it's impossible to live normally in this city with these prices. You used to be part of this conversation, complaining along with everyone else, and it was even cozy. And then, one of those evenings, something shifted. It was as if you were listening to a conversation from the outside, through a window, and you caught yourself thinking the very thought that had frightened you. We've been saying the same thing for 5 years now, word for word. Nothing has changed. Not in them, not in the conversation itself. And you weren't even bored anymore, it felt tight. Like an old jacket you'd somehow pulled back on. And then came a feeling of guilt. These are your people. You love them. Who were you to outgrow them? Stop the film here. This is the key moment. What you felt wasn't arrogance. Arrogance is looking down on people. But you weren't looking at people. You saw for the first time a vicious circle and how vicious it was. Talking in circles is a way to process life without changing it. It relieves tension just enough to give you the strength to survive until the next similar week. And when a person internally turns toward movement, this ritual stops working. The conversation hasn't gotten worse, it's become too small for you. Poverty isn't based solely on money, it's based on a self-perpetuating environment. Through unspoken rules, through don't stick your neck out, through the eternal, where you were born is where you'll find your way. And the earliest sign that you're emerging from it isn't the moment you leave, but the moment the environment begins to weigh on you. If you've ever had an evening like this at the table, through the glass, feeling guilty about your own crampedness, remember it. It was the first crack. Second shift. The moment when buying stops helping many people have their own first aid kit, a marketplace after a hard day. The process is simple. The day has drained you dry, Your boss has reprimanded you in public, or everything has simply been bleak, and in the evening you browse through the products and order something. Headphones, sneakers, another discounted item. Not because you need it, but because the moment you place your order, a small miracle happens. For 10 seconds, you feel in control. All day, everyone was deciding for you, and now it's you. All day, you were a nobody, and now you're a client. They're waiting for you. They're delivering. It's not stupidity or extravagance, as outsiders like to say. It's a painkiller. When a person has been robbed of a sense of the future, they spend money to make the present bearable. A fair deal is simply very expensive. Now, remember the moment I'm asking you to consider. It's a normal evening, you open the app and nothing catches your eye. There's a discount, but that's all. Your cart is filled and then abandoned. You simply close the tab and don't even immediately realize what happened. What happened was this. The button stopped working. The painkiller stopped working, and it wasn't a matter of willpower, it was because your money now had a purpose. It might be vague, it might lack a clear plan, but a feeling had settled deep within. This sum of money wasn't just a sum anymore, but a building block for the future. And it became a shame to spend it on momentary comfort. It wasn't the money that was a shame, it was the future. Note, it's not you started saving. Saving out of fear is also poverty, just turned inside out. A person trembles over every penny because they're afraid. What's different here is that spending has ceased to be an emotional reaction. You can certainly afford something expensive, calmly and consciously, if it works for you, but you can't drown out the evening with a purchase anymore. The loop has been broken, and fortunately, it can't be snapped back into place. If you recalled your abandoned shopping cart, that was the second shift, and it leads to a third, most subtle one. The next shift isn't in your attitude toward money, but toward time. The third shift. The moment when you first regretted not money, but time. Remember that evening. You sat down with your phone for 5 minutes, the feed, someone's arguments in the comments, another video, another. You look up, 3 hours have passed. Before, it didn't bother you at all. Well, it's gone, it's evening. But this time, an unfamiliar feeling came over you. An almost physical loss, as if something had been pulled out of your pocket. 3 hours. Where did they go? What replaced them? And the worst part, you didn't even rest. You simply disappeared from your own life for 3 hours and returned to the same place, just as tired. This is the third shift, the moment when you first regretted time, not money. And this changes everything. Let's take something worth, say, $80,000. The average person looks at the price and asks, "Can I afford it?" But someone who has experienced this shift automatically recalculates. How many of my hours is this? At say $500 an hour, that's 160 hours. A month of work, alarm clocks, commutes, other people's tasks, and fatigue, all packed into a rectangle of glass. When the price turns into hours, half the purchases fall away on their own without any willpower, not because they're sorry for the money, but because they're sorry for themselves. Now let's delve deeper, because this is where the real mechanism of poverty lies. Poverty is a system in which people sell their time cheaply and buy status dearly. A car loan, to be respected in the neighborhood, is a year of life sacrificed for the opinions of people who don't really care. And the system holds together precisely as long as people don't see this exchange rate. Your shift is the moment when the exchange rate becomes visible. You look at a thing and think not, "How do I look in it?" but "How much of me is sewn into it?" From that moment on, it's very difficult to deceive you, not by stores, not by your employer, not by yourself. The fourth shift, the moment when an old dream seemed small. It looks different for everyone, but the mechanics are the same. You scroll through old notes on your phone and find a list of goals you wrote for New Year's a few years ago, or you stumble upon a saved picture, that same car, that same vacation, and instead of nostalgia, you're overcome with a strange awkwardness. It's like finding a school essay where, when asked, "What do you want to be?" you answered, "Rich, with a cool car." This awkwardness is the fourth shift, and it's deeper than it seems. Poverty limits not only your budget, it limits your imagination. A person physically can't desire something they've never seen up close. If everyone around you dreams of buying a car on credit, then the neighborhood's wildest dream is a car on credit with no down payment. Appetites are calibrated by the environment, like music volume by the neighbors. And when you started changing, reading different things, watching different things, checking in with other people, the calibration went out of whack. Old goals didn't become bad. They simply became visible in their true size, small. Don't confuse this with disdain for simple pleasures. A vacation is wonderful. A car is comfortable. The awkwardness isn't the thing itself, but the fact that it was the ceiling, or that the entire My Best Life project fit into a single order with delivery. Fifth shift. The moment you stop talking about your plans before any idea, a new job, my own project, a move, hitting the gym on Monday would be immediately shared with friends, family, on social media. And it was nice. They'd praise you, argue with you, talk you out of it. Life would already be buzzing around the project before it even started. And then it would quietly die, and no one would ask why, because everyone else was going through the same thing. Psychologists have long observed that publicly announcing a goal in itself provides the brain with a small reward. You share it, and it feels like you've already accomplished a little. Applause received in advance eats up the fuel that should have gone toward actual work. And the moment of the fifth shift looks like this. You were asked, "So how are you? What's new?" And you, a person who has been working on something inside for 3 months now, evening courses, calculations, first steps, answered, "Nothing special." And you were surprised at how easily it happened, not out of superstition, not out of shame, but because the knowledge had already formed within you. Everything I loudly declared was dying. Everything that worked out was done silently. Another change is related to this. You've stopped arguing with skeptics. Previously, when someone said, "You can't do it," you'd jump up and argue. Now you simply shrug, not out of agreement, but to conserve energy. The only argument that really works is results, and he doesn't like big announcements. The sixth shift. The moment when failure ceased to be the end of the world. You remember a day like that effortlessly. Days like that are unforgettable. Everyone has their own. A project you poured half a year's worth of evenings into that no one needed. A dream interview after which you never got a call back. Savings wasted in a failed attempt. A partner who let you down. It doesn't matter what exactly. What matters is that you knew by heart how things would go from here. First anger, then emptiness, then a month or two at rock bottom, and the conclusion that poverty always suggests in the same way. Here's a sign. Not for me. Not for people like me. But this time things were different. You went to bed exhausted and woke up thinking, "Okay, so what didn't work? What now?" And you surprised yourself. You listened and there was no verdict. There was frustration, fatigue, even anger, but no self-incriminating verdict. The mechanism that used to shut you out of life for a month didn't kick in. Between everything collapsed and let's move on, one evening passed. It's not that you've become thick-skinned. You still felt the same pain. What has changed is what psychologists call the way you explain failure to yourself. Previously, failure sounded like, "I'm a loser," a condemnation of the person, case closed. Now it sounds like, "This method didn't work," a condemnation of a specific method, and there are many methods. The first formulation closes the story. The second opens the door to the next attempt. The difference between those who reach their goal and those who don't isn't the number of blows fate deals them. Everyone gets them roughly equally. The difference is in the speed with which you rise. And when the cost of one failed attempt stops costing months of your life, you can make many more. And the more you try, the higher the chance that one will work. Seventh shift. The moment when you took a step without any guarantees. This is the rarest of shifts. So rare that outsiders often mistake it for recklessness, though it's the highest form of calculation. The deepest habit of poverty isn't a habit of small money, but a need for guarantees. Before any step, poverty demands a certificate. Is it definitely going to work? Has anyone else done this before? And if it doesn't work out, can I go back to the way things were? And without that certificate, a person stands still for years, choosing an unloved but stable job over a chance, putting off their business until the right moment, and waiting for confidence before taking the first step. Confidence isn't something you can hand out in advance. It's not a commodity you can buy. It only emerges within the action itself. The moment of the seventh shift. An opportunity lies before you. Change your field, invest in a skill, start your own business, relocate. As usual, there are zero guarantees. Previously, your internal dialogue was, "What if it doesn't work out?" And that was where everything froze. But this time, you heard a different question. Let's say it doesn't work out. What exactly am I losing? So much money, so many months, a little pride, I'll survive. And when the calm, "I'll survive," came from within, you went, without a certificate, without insurance, without anyone else's permission. And the world, characteristically, didn't collapse. Just don't confuse this with the behavior of a gambler who takes his last money to the casino. That's not courage, but disguised desperation. The gambler doesn't calculate the worst-case scenario. He hopes for it. But here, on the contrary, the worst-case scenario has already been calculated, weighed, and recognized as survivable. This is a calculated risk, the only kind of risk that builds, not destroys. One painting instead of 7. Now let's step back and look at all 7 at once. Conversations have become intimate. Shopping has stopped healing. Time has become more expensive. Old dreams have diminished. Plans have faded into silence. Failures have stopped knocking us off our feet. Guarantees have become unnecessary. These seem like 7 different stories about friendship, money, time, and courage. But they're all one process, seen from 7 perspectives. Its name is simple. A man stopped simply surviving and began building a future. The entire psychology of poverty is a survival mode stretched out over a lifetime. Numb the pain with purchases, hold out until Friday, keep a low profile, wait for guarantees, protect yourself from blows, dream within the confines of your neighborhood. And everything we've discussed today are the 7 points at which a person breaks out of this mode, quietly, unannounced, often without even noticing. And here's the main conclusion, the one that made it all worth reading to the end. Since these are internal changes, and not a gift of fate or luck, they can be induced intentionally with one's own hands. Those who have experienced them naturally simply found themselves in a fortunate environment. And knowing this map, one can consciously create the same thing. You can decide to start calculating prices in hours, and within a month, it will become automatic. You can decide to stop announcing plans and channel that energy into work. You can train your recovery speed after failures. Catch yourself saying, "I'm a loser," and retrain yourself to say that method didn't work, over and over again, like a muscle. The list turns from a diagnosis into a manual, and that changes everything. You don't wait for change to happen, you make it happen. So I won't make any fancy promises like, just believe in yourself and everything will come. It won't come on its own. It will come to those who recognize at least 2 or 3 of these things in themselves and don't just sit back and wait for the rest, but go out and get them. Honestly, the changes that have already happened within you won't go away, but they won't end on their own either. The gap between the new you and the old number on your account can be traversed in a year, or you can languish in it for decades. The only difference is whether you work consciously with these 7 points or wait for the weather to change. And waiting in this gap is the most dangerous. It's here. Tired of being no longer part of the old you and still a nobody among the new you that people most often quietly slip back. It's warmer there. It's where they belong. And with that, let's return to where we started. That very evening, a jacket on a chair, a phone in hand, the end of the month, a modest number on the card, and a thought at the edge of consciousness. What if this is it? What if I stay here forever? Just look at this evening differently now. A modest number on the card is not a death sentence for you today. It's the old light of a long-changed star, a report on who you were, not who you will become. And this fatigue is not the fatigue of a dead end, but the fatigue of a person on the road, simply at that point where money hasn't yet caught up with the changed you. They're always late. It's their job to arrive last. So if you recognized yourself in even a couple of moments today, you're not just starting out, you're already on your way. You just didn't have a map to see it until now. Now you do. And what does a person who has received a map do? They take the next step consciously. Choose one point from the 7 that you don't yet have, just one. And spend the next month cultivating that one. Not all 7 at once. Just one. This is enough to ensure that in a month you'll be noticeably further along than you are today.